All right.
Okay.
So wait a minute. Which camera am I on?
None of them.
None of them.
That one.
There we go. All right. Hey everyone. Welcome to Great Stories. I guess this is not really a comic talk. It's not really a pop culture talk. It's not even a gaming talk video. This is going to be a little bit more of a personal look at the Great Stories team. So I'm here with my great friend, Tylor Hamel.
Yep.
Constant co-star, companion, not in that way.
Oh, geez.
But
Shuts me down so fast. Guess
yes,
I'm not good enough.
we
His
have
wife is better than I am.
a long, rich, deep history here. So,
Yeah,
and we're
yeah.
gonna kind of talk a little bit about that and about what's going on right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So Great Stories. The idea began back in 2015, actually 2013.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I shouldn't say yes. It's not like I was there. It was your idea, your
That's
plan.
true. It was my
you
idea.
had.
But we actually have gone back to 2010. That's
Yep.
when we met. We met at a graduation party,
Yep.
As you kindly reminded me of.
Yep. A friend of mine had graduated. Can I assume? Oh, you weren't even dating Melissa at that time, were you?
No, I was
You had-
not actually. This
you
was
had just started coming to our church with
That's right.
someone else that you were dating.
Yep.
They ended up leaving, but you stayed.
That's correct.
Yep.
Yes, that's right. And then we ended up at this graduation party for a friend of yours from
Yep.
the church, and sharing some very deep philosophical conversations.
As I am one to do
that-
often.
That if only this were the Halloween episode.
Oh, yeah.
Halloween is now one day in the past, by the way, in 2020. And by the way, the horror story that was 2020 was worse than any Halloween
Yeah,
story that
yeah.
we could have. So, but the conversation matter that we talked about was
aliens, right?
Was actually it was about. I don't want to get. It was very deeply personal conversation for you.
This is true.
But it was.
Oh yes, the dreams.
Yes,
Ooh.
dreams and presences and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and it
And
freaked
you-
me out. But I was.
You turned me on to the communion. That
Oh yes, that's right.
yeah.
Whitley Strieber.
actually, I
book.
still have
Yep.
your copy of it.
You do.
Should probably
You do.
get that back to you.
All
I've-
these
I've
years
had it for
later,
like
you
10
haven't read
years
it
or
yet,
so.
have you?
No, I actually did.
You did.
Yeah, I did. I did actually read it.
Oh, awesome, awesome. We'll have to talk about that one sometime. That could be a really good future episode for us. But fast forward a few years.
Yep.
When Great Stories became a little bit more of a fleshed out idea, we started filming videos. And it wasn't what you see here today in this fancy studio. It was actually, we were trying to do some kind of like guerrilla filmmaking where we were actually trying to create a plot line.
Yeah, like a little story.
And you can find these videos on the YouTube channel actually. And they were called The Least Likelies. And we had a lot of fun with it. We even started like developing commercials and things like that. And then we kind of, all of a sudden we had the opportunity to open a shop, which took all of our time. So it kind of derailed that whole thing.
Yeah.
Who knows, maybe one day
I
we'll
would-
get back to it.
I would love to go back to that, especially with the added experience, access to
Yes.
better equipment that we have now. Really put together a good script.
Yes,
Good.
it would be a lot of fun.
We know
Instead of
so many more people now that are way into that kind of thing. Like
Yep.
we were really just a bunch of know-nothings trying to make a series.
We were, but
I-
we were having fun with it.
Yeah, it was
you
good. It
know,
was a good
and
time.
so at least for us, it was a good experience. And I'm not sure about those of you who actually watch the videos if you share that opinion, but we were clearly
Probably not,
we were
probably
clearly amateurs.
This is me telling
in
you
a new
that
playground.
we were definitely amateurs at that. We knew nothing about it.
But anyway, then we had the opportunity to open the shop, and of course, you joined me in that endeavor.
Yep.
Working the shop, and here we are now, all these years later, still
4 years, yeah.
still doing our thing. So, and it's been a great ride so far. And we've gone through now 3 iterations of our
Yep.
store that has grown. It's basically doubled in size
Yep.
every time, and we've got great future plans and everything. And yeah, so life is good, and this thing keeps evolving, which is awesome.
Yes.
And to have you aboard, Tylor, is like, it's a blessing for me. And
I mean, I'm not there in the same capacity that I used to be. I mean, at one point I was there every single day, pretty much all day.
Yep.
Now
Yep.
I'm only there a couple nights doing small things, but
Yeah.
life caught up, and other opportunities came, and I had to take them. While I could.
Absolutely. But that's a good thing, though. That's not a bad thing. But you know, great stories is kind of in the blood, and you know, it will continue.
Yeah.
And like I said, it'll. I see good things ahead in the future as well,
For sure.
and love having you aboard for that.
Oh, thank you. I love being here.
So, but recently, you had a very unique opportunity come
Yes.
into your life that I can only imagine was heavily influenced by the fact, or
It
part
would
of it
not-
had some.
There was no way that this would have happened for me if
Yeah.
it wasn't for my being with Great Stories.
Awesome. Would you care to elaborate
So,
on
I
what this
have-
is and how it all developed?
I have always been a nerd. I'll start with that. I've always been a very geeky guy.
Yep.
I was wicked into Spider-Man when the first Spider-Man movie came out. I got some old school comic books when I was much younger from, I think, a family friend, or it might have been my dad's old comics. I can't remember. He's not a big nerd guy, not as big a nerd as I am. But yeah, I've always been into that type of stuff. I've read a few comics when I was younger, but I wasn't like the going to a comic book store every week to buy books kind of guy.
Right.
And so, working at Great Stories, my comic collection grew pretty quickly. I think at one time I was following like 12 titles at once.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got a few
Yep.
long boxes at home now,
Yep.
just from the past 4 years being with Great Stories.
Mhm.
But in that, I've obviously learned a lot about the comic book industry, especially doing these videos over the past couple of years.
Yep.
Like, in a lot of cases, you know, when I don't have time to do the reading, I'll go in and I'll watch like videos about what's going on in the comic book industry.
Yep.
You know, keep up to date with, you know, who's going where, you know, what different events are, you know, affecting the comic book industry, that type of stuff. And so I learned quite a bit about how comic books, you know, how the industry runs.
Yep.
And so fast forward to about 2 months ago, my friend Ben, he has a friend who at the time was working with this organization called Advocates. And what they do is they work with special needs adults, basically giving them things that they can. I'm not 100% on exactly what their core ideals are, but at least for how I'm working with them now, they basically are doing classes
Yep.
to help special
So kind of
needs
life
adults.
skills.
Yeah,
type
exactly,
things. Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
I don't know how to put it into words,
Yep.
but yeah, it's an organization that wants to help
Yep.
give as much normalcy to life to individuals that have a little bit more difficulty.
Yep.
So this friend of my friend, had contacted him, knowing that he is kind of a nerd too. Ben often comes to the shop. You
Yep.
know, he was a regular patron, one of the earlier like shop family members
That's
back
right.
when we first started.
Yep.
And she's like, "Hey, do you think you would like to do this thing with us?" And he pointed her into my direction because he wasn't as big into actual comics. He was much more into like the gaming aspect. And so he pointed her towards me. She sent me a message, and she had asked me if I wanted to teach a class on how to make your own comic books through Zoom for this organization for these young adults. And I said, yeah, immediately. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. I'm in 100%.
Awesome.
And so obviously, being in doing comics with you and stuff, my booth, got a little wave from Justin. But on top of that,
Yep.
my brother has Asperger's,
Yeah.
and my mom, she drove for Framingham. She drove for the town of Framingham. She was a special needs school bus driver.
Yep.
And then after that, she spent 8 years taking care of a young woman who had some severe autism. And so special needs is nothing that's new
Yeah.
to me or my family. I've worked with special needs kids
Yep.
and adults alike for the majority of my life. So that was absolutely nothing new to me. So to have this opportunity where I could by myself directly work
Yep.
with them, especially something as fun and enjoyable as comic books,
Yep.
I jumped on it right away. So I spent about 2 months putting together a curriculum. It's 4 1-hour Zoom class sessions
Yep.
that I, this past week, had just done the second session, so we got 2 more classes left. And the students are awesome, absolutely awesome people. They have a range of disabilities
Yep.
that there's no need for me to get that personal with them.
Sure.
So I can't tell you exactly what it is that any single one of them is dealing with, but what I can tell you is they're wonderful, creative people that I got to tell you, some of them are deeply impressive. Like, I wish I had some of their talent. I don't know why I'm the one teaching this class, because some of them are just on top of it. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's absolutely awesome to watch where their minds go, and each of them think in a very different individual way from the rest of the group. I got about 12 students that I'm working with right now.
Okay.
And then I could also work with this woman, Alicia. She's part of the organization. She's the one that's running the Zoom meeting, and she kind of helps to facilitate questions and keep things rolling. She's got a more personable relationship with each of the students. So, but yeah, it's been absolutely awesome.
Do you find it to be interactive, these
Very
sessions?
extremely interactive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of the time that we spend is actually them telling me what their ideas are. So the way that the class has kind of been structured, I built a curriculum for each session, and I sent it to the heads of the organization. They approved it, and now Alicia will use that outline to kind of direct the conversation within the class. So, and we'll allow like a good chunk of 15, 20 minutes per bullet point on the curriculum,
Yep.
just for these individuals to be able to give their ideas on that specific subject matter, and then I'm there to basically give them an idea of how it's structured. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
The very first class, we talked about what I thought was probably the most important aspect of creating any story, not just comic books, but any story at all. It comes down to inspiration.
Yep.
And so I said, what is the things that inspires you? What are the things that makes you want to do your art, want to do your writing, want to, what makes you want to draw your own comic?
Yeah.
And we went from there. Bye, booth again. Continuing to get waves. Going from there, the things in your life, the things that you see, is it another story that inspires you to want to create your own? Is it something that happened in your life, something that you want to share in a unique way that's more than just retelling a life event, instead turning it into a story entirely its own?
Yep.
And so these people are able to share with me the things that inspires them, and we probably spent a good half an hour just each one of them being able to talk about the things that they love, the things that they want to do, and we moved from there into creating our first character. And the way I encourage them to help build the ideas that they have is to both write them down and also put them into some form of art. Some of them turn it directly into written stories, some of them are turning it directly into imagery through their art, but each of them has their own creative way of bringing these ideas into motion. And slowly over the past 2 weeks, and will continue for the next 2 weeks, they're developing these ideas and putting some structure to their stories. And I was completely impressed. I came into the second class expecting to talk about secondary characters and how to begin structuring the world within your story. And so we had a short conversation, about 15 minutes or so, about where everyone was with the development of their main characters and the traits that they're giving their main characters, and at least half of them already had secondary characters.
That's cool.
They're like, oh yeah, I also made this character and this character. This is the big bad guy.
Yep.
You know, this is what he's doing and why. I mean, some of them have just been building and building and building since, you know, the first week, and they're way ahead of me as far as how this class goes.
It's interesting you say that, because I think there's a big misnomer out there that some people may think that just because someone has special needs means that they're not very intelligent, right? But it's
quite the opposite.
Not the case at all. Yeah.
The way that their brains work
Yep.
is different from your average person.
Yes.
But see, I don't even like using the term disabled, because again, I've been around special needs individuals my entire life, both kids and adults, and the way that they think is very unique.
Yep.
And sometimes it's very difficult for them to express that, especially in a way that, you know, your average person would consider like sociably like inept.
Yep.
But no, there's nothing disabled about it, in my personal opinion. It's they express themselves differently, and you can definitely see that in the way that they're structuring their stories, you know.
You're lucky enough to have a perspective that's you know, driven by, you know, the fact that you have someone close to you, you know, that has a certain need set, right? You know, and not everyone has that. I too also have that. You know, I have a special needs brother, and actually.
Oh yeah, you do.
And you know, I've looked at it. You know, there was a time in my life when I used to think, oh my gosh, I wish I had something else. You know, I wish I had a brother who was more like me. You know,
that you could relate to on a more personal level.
Yeah, but you know, the longer I've gone through life, I've just realized that like it's been a gift. My brother is a gift.
Completely different perspective on life.
Yes, and you know, and has allowed me to approach, I think, life in all different situations with a much different perspective and an empathy, and a better understanding. I think, you know, like I don't blame people who really don't have that experience for being a little bit fearful approaching a situation where they don't have the standard response set that they get, you know, that they would normally get, right, from a person, from the average person. But you know, they're people with feelings and gifts and so much to give, you know, and so this is just an awesome opportunity that you've had, and you're only halfway through it. You've got another 2 weeks to go with this.
And I'm, like I said, I'm so excited because most of them, they're ahead of me. Like this week coming up, we're going to be getting a little bit more refined with the structure of the story.
Yep.
We're going to start talking about dialogue, character interaction. We're going to be talking about beginning to draw like the structure of like the paneling for their storyline. Really start turning their ideas into an actual comic.
Yep.
And by the end of it, like the idea is that they'll each have the first page of their story done, ready to go, and like enough of an understanding of how to do it to then finish out their books in any way that they would like. And already I had one student that showed me his first page of his comic already.
That's awesome. And
you know, and in a lot of cases people are like, oh, like I have had teachers that would like try to slow you down, be like, oh, you're getting ahead of yourself, like let's start here. No, like these kids are taking it, and I say kids, because their mindset is so like there's so much
innocent.
energy. Exactly.
Innocent.
But these young adults, they they're running with their ideas, and it's like I'm not even sure really what I'm teaching them, because most of them are already on top of these ideas.
That's cool.
And all I can really do is like help them structure it in a kind of different way based on my experience with comics. But yeah, it's been awesome, and I'm really excited. There's a couple of them that have these stories, the way that they've already structured it, the main characters that they've talked about. And there's this one student, she was very quiet the very first session. I don't think she almost said anything until like the last 5 minutes. And So, you know, I addressed her and I was like, you know, do you have an idea for your character? And at this point, we're talking about just traits, just like personality traits, and you know, the things that that they have to deal with. And everyone else had given, you know, positive character traits. You know, very
Yep.
kind, very thoughtful, very courageous, strong, that type of stuff. And she had given her main character nothing but what would be considered negative traits. Very headstrong, very brash. You know, this character is very quick to fight, you know, very quick to get frustrated and angry. And she created this character that was somewhat deplorable as her protagonist,
Yeah.
but it's through the interactions with that character's sort of like nemesis that they slowly develop more personable character traits and go from someone that is somewhat deplorable to like a very kind-hearted individual.
Yeah.
And it's like that amount of like long-term character development was
Yeah.
already inside of her head, like where she wanted this character to go from and to, and it's like
Very sophisticated
and that was
character
nothing-
development.
that was
Yeah.
nothing that I had even begun to address as an idea yet.
Yeah.
And now
That's cool.
the world that she's already started to build from there, oh, I'm so excited to see how her story turns out. I'm gonna
That's
be honest
cool.
with you.
So, do you see yourself perhaps, you know, once you get beyond the next 2 weeks of sessions, is this something you think you'll seek out again, the opportunity to do it again, or?
I entertain the idea that perhaps this goes well enough that they might ask me to continue to work with them.
Yep.
I think that would be really awesome.
Yep.
Right now, I got a lot going on.
Yep.
But this is definitely something that I think I can make room for.
That's
And
really cool.
I think anybody who has an opportunity to work with people in this capacity should jump at it, because it gives you an awesome perspective on life, you know. And again, I'm learning as much, I think, as these students are, because I have to structure the classes. I really have to think about, you know, what I want to teach them and how I want to teach it to them.
Yep.
And I get in there and I turn around and they just completely just come at it from angles that I didn't even begin to think about.
Right.
And
Yep.
yeah. So I
That's
definitely
awesome.
think so.
Well, this was very insightful, because I mean, this is something I'm not really familiar with, and I was just so excited to hear that you got this opportunity and for you to come on and share it with us like that. That's really awesome, because I think that things like this are not the things that are in the normal ethos of like, you know, what we think of in the day-to-day, right? That we get opportunities to kind of serve those that are less fortunate. Oftentimes where that's like, oh, well, I give a charity, you know, I give money to an organization or something like that, or, you know, you might even go to a soup kitchen or something like that. There are lots of other groups of people who are like largely not served, I think, in a lot of ways, and I think this is one of the groups. And I know there are organizations out there that do a really good job with it.
Yeah.
You know, but for you to have this opportunity, it allows us to kind of raise the awareness of that. And so this was like a really cool thing to be able to sit down and talk about, and also. You know, I look forward to having these conversations with other people on the team too, because I think there's probably things in their life that they could share with us that it would be really eye-opening. So
yeah, absolutely.
So Tyler,
Maybe
thanks for
first one of many to come and talk about personal things.
Exactly. Yeah. So
the
this was
insides of great stories.
a little bit of the introspective for us here. Great stories.
This is where great stories comes from. They're people that make it up.
That's true. It does kind of fit the theme of what we project, right? So anyway, we thank you for watching the video. Thank you for joining us for this, and this little bit of an offbeat type of session that we had. We promise you we've got a lot of other, you know, more like less serious, fun stuff to talk about coming up.
This was fun.
But this was fun for us. This was fun for us. So anyway, thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.